Hi, it's Michael Senoff with Michael Senoff's HardToFindSeminars.com. The title of this interview is called Stop Suffering Now, the Only Cure You'll Need for Whatever You're Suffering From, Depression, Migraines, Dementia, Chronic Fatigue, PMS, ADD, or whatever. Most of us walk around in a kind of sluggish state. We never really feel 100%, whether it's because of depression, not sleeping right, or maybe we're just having a hard time focusing or functioning. But it doesn't have to be that way. What if there was an easy drug-free fix that could give you the life and energy and vitality no matter how old you are? You'd probably guess it involves changing your diet and exercise, and you'd be right. But that's not as vague as it sounds. There's actually a customizable way that involves diagnosing your own sick symptoms, finding out where your deficiencies are, and matching them up with a nutritional plan so that you fix your health fast and in a lasting way that no medication could ever duplicate. And in this interview with Dr. Mark Hyman, author of the UltraMind Solution, you'll hear all about it, including the 5 simple causes of all diseases. Know them and you'll be well on your way to feeling and looking great. The 2 quick questions you can ask yourself that will diagnose what's bugging your body and causing many of your problems. The story of how a desperate woman in constant pain and diagnosed with 29 different diseases took matters into her own hands and fixed her health in just 6 short weeks when 12 different doctors failed. The 2 foods you'll want to avoid that cause depression, dementia, and brain damage in our society. The eye-popping amount of pesticides the average person consumes in just 1 year and how to stop poisoning yourself. The 4 major steps to reclaiming your health and body. Dr. Hyman says everyone is different when it comes to health, so you can't just follow a cookie-cutter diet and expect to get the best results for you. And in this audio, you'll hear how to make that kind of customized plan that will help you take back your health from the medical system and feel better fast. Now let's get going.
Hi, this is Chris Costello, and I've teamed up with Michael Senoff to bring you the world's best health-related interviews. So if you know anyone struggling with their weight, with cancer, diabetes, ADHD, autism, heart disease, or other health issues, send them over to Michael Senoff's HardToFindSeminars.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Hyman.
I'm really glad to be here.
Now, in your book, The UltraMind Solution, you say that your goal is to help people live a life of energy, vitality, pleasure, and happiness. How does your UltraMind Solution achieve that?
Well, most of us walk around a little bit less healthy than we could be, or just, frankly, not functioning very well, with trouble focusing, memory problems, just sluggish energy, mood problems, up and down, anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, and most of us don't exactly know why. And the book, The UltraMind Solution, is an attempt to help people understand in a practical, step-by-step way how their brains break, so to speak, and how to fix them. The way to do it isn't through more therapy or psychiatric medication, which is the number 2 selling class of medication in the world, but through understanding the causes of your broken brain, which is the basic underlying causes of all disease. It's nutrition and the quality of food we eat, which is so poor. It's stress, it's toxins, it's infections and allergens. All these things are the underlying causes of all illness, and they cause imbalances in the basic systems of the body, which I talk about in quite a lot of detail in the UltraMind Solution. And those 7 systems, when they're out of balance, cause the broken brains. So whether it's nutritional imbalances or immune imbalances and inflammation or digestive imbalances or problems with detoxification or with hormonal imbalances and so on, we experience that as dysfunction in our whole body. And guess what? Our body's connected to our brain's connected to our body. It's not 2 separate systems, it's one system. And of course the mind-body effect is well understood, but the body-mind effect, which is the effect of the body on your brain and your brain function, is not well appreciated. And that's why I wrote the book, to highlight that and to help people understand that there is a way, a very practical way, to help people really focus on that and address it. Well, that's why I call it broken brains, because it's everything. It's everything from depression to dementia, from autism to ADD, to just plain brain fog, and everything in between. It can help you improve neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, help with even psychotic disorders like schizophrenia. can help with autism and ADD and all sorts of mood disorders. You know, the problem is that these labels don't really mean anything. Think about it. Our diagnostic manual for psychiatry has 238 different conditions in it, and they're all categorized and separated according to their particular category, whether it's a personality problem or a mood problem or, memory issue. The reality is that there aren't 238 different problems. There's a few problems that cause all these different symptoms. So if you have depression, that's just the name that we give to a collection of symptoms, which are feeling sad and hopeless and helpless and having low energy and not being able to sleep well and having a problem with your appetite and being not motivated, and that's depression. But that doesn't mean that depression causes those symptoms. It's just the name we give to those symptoms. So then you have to ask the question, what's the cause? And the cause is what's going on in the rest of your body. And it could be a myriad of things, from vitamin B12 deficiency or folic acid deficiency or vitamin D deficiency or a deficiency of omega-3 fats. Or it could be a toxin like mercury poisoning. Or it could be an allergy. I've seen, young people have had depression for, a decade of their life. A 23-year-old woman with depression since she was 13 on Zoloft who had allergies to gluten and dairy. And we got off those, her brain could function again, and her mood improved. She got off her medications, and as a side effect, she lost 40 pounds. So we have to understand that we can't just name problems and find the right pill to match the name, whether it's an anxiety medication for anxiety or an antidepressant for depression or a stimulant for ADD. We need to address the fundamental causes, and that's not that hard to do. Instead of 238 different problems, there's really only 7 systems in the body you have to think about, and there's only 5 causes of all disease: toxins, infections, allergens, bad diet, and stress. It's really simple. The first thing that we have to look at, and I step back a little bit and ask 2 questions. One is, before I even get into the system, say, what is it that's bugging you? In other words, what's creating imbalance in your body? And there's only, as I said, 5 causes of all imbalance: toxins, infections, allergens, stress, and bad diet. And the second question I ask is, what are you missing that you need to thrive, that makes these systems work in balance? And there's, again, only a few raw materials that the body needs to thrive. You're a biological organism. As you may try to avoid it, it's going to come back and bite you. I mean, if you have a house plant, would you water your plant with cola, with soda? No, you would die, right? Well, we put that in our bodies and we don't think twice about it. So we have to put in the right raw materials, high-quality food, whole, real food, not processed food, the right number of levels of nutrients, vitamins and minerals. We need enough sleep. We need exercise. We need rest. We need relaxation. We need love and connection and community. We need air and water and light. These are just the raw materials that our bodies need to thrive. When you either are getting too much of something you don't need, like a toxin, allergen, infection, poor diet, or stress, or you're not getting enough of what you do need, right, which is a healthy level of good quality food and the right nutrients and so forth, then your body can't thrive. And when your body can't thrive, you come down with imbalances in these basic systems in the body. So you become nutritionally deficient, and you have some major ones in the nutritional area like B12, folate, and B6, and vitamin D, and omega-3 fats, and magnesium, all of which have big impacts on the brain. You have immune problems where you get overactive inflammation, which inflames your brain, and a depressed, demented, or autistic brain is an inflamed brain. And that can be caused by allergens, toxins, infections, poor diet, and stress. And you see how this goes on. And each system, whether it's your hormonal system, your detoxification system, your energy production system in your body, your digestive system, your mind-body system, all these are influenced by those 5 causes of disease and those few ingredients you need for optimal thriving. Quite simple, actually. And in each area, we have different ways to help get back in balance, and I describe that in the UltraMind Solution. And step by step, I take people through how to identify if they have a problem in each area through an extensive quiz, the questions I ask my patients in my practice, and through very step-by-step instructions on how to, 1, create an UltraMind that's basic for everybody, and then how to specify and customize the plan for you depending on where your major imbalances are. Done through taking a good medical history or just asking the questions that I outline in the quizzes. And then if you need to, you can get tests, which we do through specialized testing, which I explain in the book and in the guide, which is actually a companion guide that goes with the book that's free online. You go to ultramind.com and you can register and get that. But the key is that if you break it down into these simple things and you don't get all sidetracked into naming and blaming, getting the name of the disease and then blaming the name for the problem and then treating the pill with an ill, and you get just focused on creating balance in the body through getting rid of the things that are bugging you and giving your body the things it needs and getting these systems into balance, then all these diseases go away. And I had a woman come in with 29 diseases the other day. I mean, can you imagine? 29 different diagnoses, She was on many different medications. She had chronic fatigue. She had migraine headaches. She had heavy menstrual bleeding and PMS. She had irritable bowel syndrome. She had depression. She had, oh gosh, you name it, she had it. And allergies and sinus problems and chronic sinusitis. It's all in your body. That's the irony of it. Even things that we think are in your head, like anxiety and depression, are really all in your body. So what we found in this woman, and she had seen about a dozen doctors, and really was not getting any help, and she was very overweight and just very sluggish and couldn't function. Turned out that she had an autoimmune disease that was undiagnosed, that was an autoimmune reaction or an inflammatory reaction to gluten, which is the protein found in wheat and barley and rye and oats, and that caused her to have an autoimmune thyroid problem, like Oprah has, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune thyroid problem. Her thyroid shut down, and then her gut wasn't working because the gluten was inflaming her gut, and she had massive nutritional deficiencies, particularly vitamin D, and she was in Canada, so she was living probably close to Alaska and had very little sun exposure. So all we did was get rid of the gluten, treat her thyroid, got her on some vitamin D, clean up her diet. I called her back 6 weeks later, and I go through the list of 29 problems, and how's this. I got to the end of the list. Every single thing was gone. Every single thing. And she lost 21 pounds in 6 weeks without even trying. So I didn't treat her depression or her brain fog that she had with chronic fatigue syndrome. All I did was get rid of the things that were bugging her and put back the things that she was missing. She was eating gluten, which was bugging her, and she was missing thyroid and vitamin D. Very simple, actually. I was even shocked. When I started doing this type of medicine years ago, I would apply the methods and the concepts of functional medicine, which is the medicine I'm talking about. It's not my idea. It's not my invention. I've been talking about it and writing about it, but it's really an emerging model. It's going to be the future of medicine, and it's going to replace our current way of thinking about diseases and specialties. And people would say, gee, I'm all better. I say, how are you doing? What's going on? They would say, well, my psoriatic arthritis went away, or my chronic migraines I've had for 30 years are gone since I stopped eating eggs, or I had such severe PMS I couldn't function for the last 2 weeks of my menstrual cycle, and now I don't have any symptoms. Or they would say my dementia is better. These things I just wouldn't see as a regular practicing doctor. And at first I was sort of like, wow, you got better? And the answer is yes, they did get better.
This is Chris Costello reporting for Michael Senoff's HardToFindSeminars.com. I know traditional medical doctors, many of them will say, I can't get my patients to do this. They need to change their diet, but they won't comply. Now, have you experienced that?
Tell your patient, eat less and exercise more, and then they don't comply, and you wonder why. It's not very complicated. People need more information. Just eat healthy. Have 3 healthy meals a day. What does that mean to most people? People don't understand anything about nutrition. Doctors don't understand much about nutrition. We don't get very much education about it. Maybe an hour if we're lucky in medical school. The average person who reads Oprah magazine knows more about nutrition than the average doctor. So I think we have to recognize that you can't motivate or engage someone to do something if you don't really understand it yourself. When you have the right methods and the tools and the education materials, people can change. I am a practicing doctor. I have a practice in Lenox, Massachusetts, the Ultra Wellness Center. I have another doctor, Dr. Boehm, works with me. And we have a policy in our office. You cannot see the doctor without seeing the nutritionist. Because I believe you cannot practice medicine without nutrition. So I basically absolutely refuse to see any patients if they don't see the nutritionist as well, because they guide them in looking at the quality of their diet and how they do. And when they do that, they have enormous success. I have enormous success in helping people change their diets if they're given the right information, if they're taught what to do, if they understand the connection between what they eat and how they feel. But most doctors don't even understand the connection between what their patients eat and their disease states. They don't believe there's a connection. I saw a neurologist from Harvard who had 30-year history of migraines. He's a headache specialist, and he couldn't get rid of his headaches. And within 3 days after seeing me, he has never had another headache. Now, he knew something was up, but he didn't have the map. It's like, saying, here, I'm going to send you to the middle of Cairo, and I want you to find your way around. You're going to be completely lost. So doctors don't have the map to navigate this model yet. We have it. They just don't learn about it. And we have an educational institute where we're teaching practitioners about this called the Institute for Functional Medicine. But the beauty of this is all he had to do was get rid of something he was eating, gluten, and improve his diet and a few other simple things, and all the symptoms went away. It's very simple. People can take back their health care from the medical system and leave the medical system to take care of very serious illnesses or trauma or things that it's good at. But dealing with chronic disease certainly isn't one of those things. First of all, I want to say that what you don't eat is important, but also what you do eat is equally important, if not more important. So eating real whole food is key. But the things that cause the most brain damage are processed and junk food, which has trans fats, and high fructose corn syrup, both of which cause brain inflammation and damage the brain and cause depression and dementia and many other problems. Toxins in our food by eating food that's, full of pesticides and heavy metals. So I encourage people to eat organic when they can to avoid large, big fish like swordfish, tilefish, shark, and most tuna fish. And I also encourage people to try and experiment for 6 weeks just to see if they actually can feel any different by getting rid of gluten and dairy. And those are two things which are common food allergens for a lot of reasons, and those things have an enormous impact for so many people. And that's why I recommend it as a basic plan, because it'll help people identify whether it's a problem for them or not, simply by getting rid of it. And then when you eat it again, if you feel badly, you'll know that's what it was. Obvious things like processed food and artificial sweeteners and chemicals and additives. I mean, there's 3,500 different additives put in our food every year. The average person eats a gallon of pesticides every year on their food. So we have to kind of look at the impact of these things over time and understand that we have to be more willing to sort of just take a serious look at the quality of our food.
And is dairy a problem for a lot of people?
It is, for a lot of different reasons. We have, in this country, all of our dairy cows are all sort of hybridized and basically all the same and have a genetically different casein, which is the protein in it. Cows, for example, in Europe, or if there's heirloom breeds, that can actually have a significant impact on the immune system. And a lot of people have congestion and postnasal drip and irritable bowel syndrome and all sorts of things as a result of having problems with the dairy. And there's no way to know unless you just stop it. I mean, there are allergy tests, but the best test is actually just taking a break.
When people stop eating gluten, do you recommend they just look for gluten-free products, or they start learning to cook? How do they do that process?
Thankfully, there's so much more information out there now about how to be gluten-free. There's cookbooks, there's websites, there's all sorts of, in many, many stores, gluten-free products, and there's also restaurants that actually have gluten-free menu lists. So there's an increasing awareness of this problem. It affects 1 in 100 people, but it may be much more than that in terms of this low-grade problems, maybe up to 10% of the population, 1 in 10 people. So I think if you have a problem, if you feel great, you feel wonderful, everything's great, don't worry about it. But if you're sick or if you have any health issues, you want to be more focused on exactly what's going on. And you have to do that by giving yourself an elimination diet, which identifies the problem by getting rid of it for a little while and then adding it back in.
Now, once people do recover or feel better, do they reintroduce these foods back into their diet? Or
Absolutely.
Is this...
I have people do the 6-week plan, and then after 6 weeks, I explain exactly in my book, UltraMind Solution, how to do that. And I basically guide them through the process of identifying whether or not there's a problem or not. And I have people take a food log. It's very straightforward. And then if they've been avoiding it for a period of time and then they start eating it again, they'll know there's a problem because they'll feel very sick.
For our listeners, can you kind of give an overview of what the 6-week program entails?
Sure. It's very simple, actually. There's 4 major steps. First is eating right for your brain. Second is tuning up your brain chemistry with supplements and the right supplements. 3 is the UltraMind lifestyle, which involves adequate exercise, stress management, relaxation, sleep, and training your brain, doing things to help your brain get engaged and focused. And lastly, living clean and green. So those are 4 simple things that people do, and I explain them very clearly in the book. First is eating right for your brain, which is becoming a fathead. You want to eat omega-3 fats from wild salmon and sardines and flax seeds, because most of your brain is made up of fat, and you need to have fat to be happy and healthy. Second is you have to eat protein for brain power, because amino acids are the building blocks of neurotransmitters that make your brain work and actually make you happy and be able to focus and pay attention. So if you eat a bagel and a muffin for breakfast and a glass of orange juice and expect to be able to focus, you're not going to have any protein to make the amino acids you need for dopamine, for example, and so you won't be able to focus. And you need to eat the right carbs, whole, fresh foods, beans, nuts, whole grains, vegetables, fruit. Those are the right healthy carbs. And we need to eat phytonutrients, colorful plant foods with lots of antioxidants and compounds that help protect our brain. And we need to tune up our brain chemistry with supplements. And I recommend the basic supplement plan for everybody, which is a multivitamin, fish oil, B complex, which has B6 folate and B12, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, and some probiotics, which are healthy bacteria that help your gut stay healthy and protect your brain.
There are some camps that feel that, supplementation can create imbalances, things like that.
Well, I think, you can die from drinking too much water. People have seizures who are marathon runners or who do races because they overhydrate and their blood gets diluted with water and they have seizures and they die. Does that mean you shouldn't drink water? No. We have to look at what our bodies need, what they require, what they're missing, and what our bodies uniquely need on an individual basis to get what they have to have in order to function properly. And everybody's different. So part of it is customizing it. But, the reality is that 92% of Americans, according to government health surveys and tests, are deficient in one or more nutrients at the minimum level needed not to stay optimally healthy, but to prevent deficiency diseases like scurvy or rickets. So that's 92% of us. We eat food that's highly processed, that's grown in depleted soils with petrochemical fertilizers, that's transported across vast distances, that has very low levels of nutrients. And we're seeing in obese kids, we're seeing, for example, severe nutritional deficiencies. These kids are overfed and undernourished. And so we're seeing rickets in little children again. We're seeing scurvy in children again because their diets are so depleted. And even if you eat a great diet, it's very difficult to get in the 21st century the adequate amount of nutrients you need. I think if you look at the literature as a whole and you look at the research collectively and understand the flaws in a lot of the studies that show that they don't work, then it becomes very obvious that we all do need nutrients at the basic minimum levels. If you, for example, live in a world where you hunt and gather your own food, where you're not exposed to any pesticides, where you drink pure clean water, where you have no stress, you sleep 9 hours a night, and you exercise 2 hours a day, of course you don't need vitamins. But I don't know anybody who fits that description, which is basically how we all used to live.
That's the end of our interview, and I hope you've enjoyed it. For more great health-related interviews, go to Michael Senoff's hardtofindseminars.com.
I hope you've enjoyed this interview. For more wonderful interviews on health and wellness, go to hardtofindseminars.com.